What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Speaking of welcome back, MCU Films. I can't believe that on July 2nd, it will be a full 2 years since we've gotten an MCU Films in theaters with Spider-Man Far From Home. But listen, we are back in Phase 4, our first film out of the gates, and that is Natasha Romanoff's prequel, Black Widow, which I got a chance to see in theaters last night, courtesy of a press screening that I was able to attend, and I am so excited to let you all know what I thought about this film, my pros, my cons, and share my thoughts with you all in this spoiler-free review. Before we break it all down, make sure you all are following me on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing, and while you're at it, make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this review, well, make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Share this video to all the MCU Black Widow fans that you know. It will really help out the channel, and also really appreciate the support. And in the comments, we got to talk about this film, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know, number one, where did you stand with this film? Was it a little bit too little too late? Were you excited for it? Were you hyped for it? Was it one of your most anticipated films of this year? But then once you've seen this film on July 9th, whether it's on Disney Plus or if you saw it in theaters, what did you think about the film? Did it live up to the expectations? Did it give you those Winter Soldier, spy, espionage, Jason Bourne type of feels? Did you enjoy what we got with Natasha and her backstory, the new characters they introduced? Where does this film rank for you? This is the 25th film maybe, in the MCU. Is it top tier? Is it kind of in the middle of the pack? Is it bottom of the barrel? Where does this film rank for you all? Let's have some dialogue around that in the comments below. So listen, I'm going to just address this up top. The elephant in the room. Yes, Natasha Romanoff as Black Widow. We shouldn't have gotten her film years ago. I mean, hell, we probably even kind of got it after Iron Man 2, if we're being honest. But listen, the landscape of the MCU was different. They didn't have the certain type of putting things out there as they should have years ago. Your Black Widows of the world, your Black Panthers of the world, female-led films. They're a little bit behind the times, and they're using, and we'll get to that a little bit later, they're using Phase 4 to kind of make up for their mistakes. So listen, I'm not going to blame the film for being a little bit late to the party, but listen, this is Phase 4, ladies and gentlemen. This was the film that was supposed to kick off Phase 4. Obviously, we know it got delayed. We got our WandaVisions of the world, the Falcon and Winter Soldiers. We're now watching Loki, and now we finally got our first film, the big boys, right? We're in the big leads when we go to the MCU films. What did I think about it? Well, let's start off with the positives. Let's start off with the origins. This is a prequel. This is taking place, and this is no spoilers. This is public knowledge. This film takes place after the events of Civil War and before the events of Infinity War. And one thing that I will say that, as far as the positives, I enjoyed the origins of Natasha. Not to get too in depth, but and this is in the trailer, we learn the family scenario. We get a little bit more backstory of where she comes from, how family is so important to her. We've seen Natasha mention family, which is funny enough, after coming off of Fast 9 just last week, and now another film really heavily relying on family. But I felt the family, which we'll talk about here in a second. But just seeing a young Natasha, her growing up, how she was raised, how she was kind of put in her mindset to be always on the go, always looking behind her back, being implemented in the spy program that she is, in the Black Widow program, and being raised in a Red Room. All that stuff just adds more appreciation to the character, adds more depth and layers to the characters, and it makes you want to go back and watch her from Iron Man 2, Avengers, Age of Ultron, Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. It just makes those moments when you see that character on screen, because I revisit a lot of these MCU films, especially my top tier ones, on a yearly basis. So it makes you appreciate those moments a lot more now that you have context of where this character comes from. So I really appreciate the origins that we got and how they really kind of fleshed it out, as well as just like, not to dive into spoilers, but just the opening sequence alone, just again, and not getting too much into the details, but just seeing how always on the go, always watching her back, separation, and all that stuff that we get with an opening sequence really kind of submits how this character has become the person that we know to love her from in the Marvel films. So another thing that I kind of briefly touched on was the family theme. Now, this is something very important in this movie, is the importance of family and what family means to Natasha in particular. We all know what the Avengers meant to her, and this was her family that she never knew she needed, never knew she wanted, but it's the family she was getting, Cap, Iron Man, the whole damn team. But seeing her her other family, her first family, and just seeing how the dynamic was between, Natasha, Yelena, Alexei, Melina, all of them kind of coming together. I don't know if you all have ever seen the show on FX, but The Americans, right? It gave me a lot of shades of that, especially the spy espionage, Russian spy, all that stuff. I really enjoyed the family dynamic that we got with the film, I should say. And also just this is a particular theme that goes on within the film besides family. It's fixing your past mistakes, which is kind of meta nature of how this film came to be. It's almost like MCU putting this film out to be the first film out of Phase 4. It's like the MCU's fixing some mistake, not having this film be years ago, but just particularly in the narrative of the film, Natasha fixing her mistakes, Yelena, Alexei, Melina, a lot of our characters are trying to make up for things that they've done in the past, fixing all that red ledger in their past. So I really enjoy that theme that goes throughout the film. But one thing that definitely stands out to me is the performances. It really kind of, in my personal opinion, which I'll talk a little bit about later, the script, but I felt like the performances really kind of elevated somewhat of a generic storyline that we'll talk about in my cons. But starting off with, let's talk about Natasha. Scarlett Johansson, a mega star, movie star, really great actress. I thought that she was really great in this film. I still think that I prefer other performances on an emotional level a little bit more than I did in this film, which we'll talk about some of my criticisms with Scarlett Jo in this role, but I thought for the most part, she carried the weight, she carried the emotional beats, the action, as we all know, Natasha, and particularly Scarlett Johansson, really kind of brings that gravitas to the action sequences, so I thought she was fine. The standout though for me, and this is, you've all probably heard it at this point by now, but Florence Pugh is fantastic. She is Yelena, she is the younger sister of Natasha Romanoff, and we get to meet, I felt like I learned more about this character in one film than it's taken 7 films of Natasha, and particularly in this film. But I really enjoy Yelena. It is a character that I am really excited to see what the MCU brings to the table with this character. And listen, this isn't a spoiler because the MCU has made this public knowledge that the character will be making an appearance in a future MCU project, and I'm really excited for that because Florence Pugh is a megastar and she is great in this film. She has a lot of the comedic beats. She has a lot of great action set pieces. She has a lot to do with this story, surprisingly, and if I'm being honest, you can actually take Natasha Romanoff out of this story, and it could have just been a Yelena's story and how she came to be. That's how important she was to the story. So I really enjoyed her. David Harbour as Alexei, I thought that he was really great as the Red Guardian. His whole running theme of being the Russian version of Captain America and how he would love to go toe-to-toe with Steve Rogers, and who knows what the future holds for a character like that in regards to just his animosity to how he was treated. But I enjoyed his comedic beats. I enjoyed his father figure type of story that we get with him and him trying to make up for his past mistakes. So those two characters for me really kind of stood out. And I can't leave without mentioning the action set pieces without giving too much away. But scenes like Nat versus Yelena when they kind of reunite for the first time, Nat versus Taskmaster, their first outing that they get the hand-to-hand combat, and especially when we see them towards the third act, I thought that sequence was pretty awesome. So the action was pretty top-notch within this film. So those are some of my main positives that I have to say about the film, kind of transitioning to some of my criticisms here. Listen, this film, when I saw the trailer, and when I heard this film was going to be, come to fruition, first thing I thought of was, oh yeah, this is going to be a Winter Soldier, spy espionage type of film, and it definitely has those vibes. But it has almost too much of those vibes, and it felt almost too familiar. This story to me, the actual script, is too similar to a Winter Soldier film. And once you've seen the film, or once you've already saw, you know exactly what I'm talking about. From either how they use Taskmaster as somewhat like a Winter Soldier character, the Red Room, the Black Widow program, very similar to the Winter Soldier program. Civil War influences on this film. There's a little bit of Iron Man stuff going on in this movie. And then, of course, there's other outside of MCU films that this movie really reminded me of, whether it be a Jason Bourne or even a Red Sparrow from Jennifer Lawrence. So there are just too many familiar beats within this story that it didn't really feel too original, and I felt like I've seen this movie before, which is really unfortunate, which brings me to, again, without giving away too many of the spoilers, but there are a lot of convenient moments in this film that I felt like Natasha Romanoff, again, I was talking about Fast 9 earlier. There are some moments where I'm just like, she's an Avenger and she's a badass, as well as her younger sister Yelena. But there are some moments in this film I'm just like, okay, are we in the Fast and Furious franchise right now? There is some things that Natasha is able to do and survive, which I'll talk about, just that plot armor that the characters have, just because we know the ultimate result of how she ends up, leaving us in Endgame. But it was just, there's a lot of plot holes in this film that I'll dive deeper into in a future spoiler review. But there's a lot of plot holes that I'll explore further reviews. But there's some plot holes that I just wasn't the biggest fan of. But let's talk about some of my biggest criticism, and this is something that we've talked about in the past. The Marvel formula. Now, the formula is very successful. We know this is the biggest franchise in the world. This is one of the biggest franchises of all time. But I felt like the Marvel formula, overshadowed the director, Cate Shortland, who is known for her independent films and indie films. And I really didn't feel the director, Cate Shortland, really put her sensibilities as a director in this film. Just felt like they had a director saying, start, cut, doing the direction thing, but it didn't feel like, I felt like there was a director really giving her all in this film. And I felt like the movie is at times more concerned, this is just an MCU thing in general, but in particular in this film, I feel like they were more concerned about the setup of Phase 4, Phase 5, a setup of, and this is just a Phase 4 thing, if you guys have been watching the MCU shows on Disney+, we've gotten a lot of Young Avengers type of setup, right? Whether it be the twins, whether it be, what we get with the Falcon and Winter Soldier and someone replacing Sam, whether it be even with Loki, a new Loki. I feel like this film in particular, with a particular character, as I mentioned earlier, Yelena, that they are just setting the stage for more things, more so than being concerned about what's going on at hand, which brings me to my really big point. Natasha Romanoff, she is the star of this film, but I felt like I didn't get the justice that I wanted from this character. Again, I won't bring up the fact that it does feel a little bit too late that this film is coming out, just putting that aside, but just her story in general, as I had mentioned when I was giving praise to Yelena and Florence Pugh, I felt like you could literally take Natasha Romanoff out of this story and it could still be a movie because of Yelena's threat line, how she was so integral into the taking down of the particular villain, the taking down of the Red Room and that whole scenario. So I just personally felt a bit disappointed of Natasha Romanoff not really getting the justice that she deserved. I really didn't feel like the film really kind of emphasizes the death of the character in Endgame. I just felt like it was a little bit disappointing. It didn't really give her the flowers I think she deserved in her first and probably last outing of an Avengers type of character. So I just felt like the last final appearance of ScarJo was a bit disappointing for me. And then just some other little nitpicks. Those are pretty the big things. The MCU formula overshadowing the actual story at hand, and ScarJo not really being the solo outing that I was really hoping for. But some nitpicks that I have here. The trailer gave away a lot, guys, and I won't say what, but just if you've seen the trailers, you've seen the movie. I'll just kind of leave it at that. And then also I have on my notes here, wasted characters. I'm such a big fan of Rachel Weisz. She plays Melina, who is a veteran within the Red Room. She's obviously a mother influence to Natasha and Yelena, and obviously the wife of Alexei. But I felt like her character was wasted, and I won't get into the reasons why, but I just wasn't too happy with how the character came to be and how they gave her plot and her storylines, very sideline in the majority of the film, which, speaking of sideline, I mentioned Taskmaster being this kind of Winter Soldier-esque type of character throughout the film, who just, whenever they're on screen, they're supposed to be menacing, but I never felt that. And I won't get into the spoilers, but the reveal of the character was a bit of a letdown for me personally. Very telegraphed throughout the film, by the way, but Taskmaster was a bit of a letdown for me. Characters like OT, the actor who I'm a fan of, who plays Rick, they literally could have casted anyone in his role. He really didn't bring... His character literally brought stuff in this film, but I just felt like that character just didn't really work for me. And then other little characters like William Hurt's appearance in this film felt a bit underwhelming and felt kind of shoehorned just to be like, yeah, we're MCU and you know this character because, again, this takes place after Civil War and all that stuff. I felt like William Hurt was just shoehorned in the film. And then I guess our main villain of the film, Dreykov, played by Ray Winstone, was just very generic, very stereotypical villain. I hate when villains do this in action film where they give you their whole plan and plots and like, this is my whole idea what I'm doing, and just showing the audience. Like, I hate when they do that. It's so telegraphed. But I wasn't a fan of Dreykov in this film, I'll just say that. And then last but not least, I'm trying to skate around this, there are multiple post-credit scenes in the film. In the first post-credit scene felt very forced and felt very underwhelming for my sense, and it made no sense if I'm being honest, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. So before I give you my overall thoughts and my ultimate score, make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. With all that being said, overall, even though I have my criticism with the film, at the end of the day, it's really good action at points. I did enjoy the origins and adding more layers and depth and context in Natasha's story. I really am excited for the future of what this film gave us in regards to a character like Elena and some other characters of this film, and excited to see what they do next. The second post-credit scene really does set the stage for excitement level for me, but I did mention again, I do feel like ScarJo just didn't get the proper flowers that I think she deserved as in her first solo outing. That was just should have happened, like I said, years ago, as well as I felt like there were wasted characters, plot conveniences, plot holes, as well as just the MCU formula really overshadowing the film at hand. So with all that being said, I'm going to give Natasha Romanoff's prequel origin stories Black Widow a solid 3 out of 5. I did get a chance to see it at theaters, which was really cool to see, going back to the theaters, seeing an MCU film for the first time. But I'll have to say, as far as rankings go, with it being a 3 out of 5, that's kind of middle of the pack for me, guys. It's not the bottom of the barrel, but it's kind of sitting in within that. You know, I would probably say it's not in my top 10. It's somewhere in that 11 through probably 16 range for me. And who knows, in a future rewatch, you know, it might get closer to that top 10. But right now, like I said, it's probably between like a number 11 and number 16 for my personal taste. But hey, that's just my thoughts. I have a lot more to say about this film in future videos. I will be shooting a spoiler review probably in the next 24 hours and have that ready for you all when the film comes out next week. I'm going to probably dive a little bit deeper, maybe in a separate video, talking about the post-credit scenes more in depth, and then I maybe will do a live stream discussion about this film with a panel. So we'll see what comes with that, but expect more conversations because we're back in the MCU, our first film out of Phase 4, and I gotta say, I'm not disappointed, but I'm a little bit underwhelmed with this being the first film out of the gate. But hey, that's just my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts in the comments once you've seen the film, your pros, your cons, your favorite moments, your favorite characters, some of the things that didn't work for you. Let's talk about it in the comments. As always, make sure to like, share, comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all are staying safe. Hope you all enjoyed this review, and we'll see you in the next video.